Actually, I'm working within Renater since 2007, and I'm mainly I'm working within the backbone engineering team and operations too. Yeah, I will follow the template, which is the basic agenda we all follow today. Let's start with the network part. Just a quick digression. I would just want to provide you some figures about Renater's team. Renater is obviously a non-profit organization founded by public institution, and we have 12 members and the Ministry of Education and Research Network. We have 3 headquarters in France. The main is in Paris, and 4 headquarters. The main is in Paris, and 3 spoke sites: Rennes, Montpellier, Grenoble. We roughly have 53 persons, and basically only 10 people are working in the backbone. 10 technical people. This is roughly what the national coverage of the network. I will put some figures afterwards. Mainly the main philosophy is to have each POP having 2 dark fiber following different paths. So the goal is to reach the maximum of availability in case of dark fiber failure. So we roughly have 12,000 dark fiber kilometers of dark fibers, 125 links. I mean, when I mean links, it's lambda, 72 POPs, and this number is keep increasing as regional networks are disappearing. And 84 shelter, which is called also HAT, where we perform reamplification, signal regeneration, and so on. So we have 200 DWDM chassis composed by Alcatel 1626 LM and Sienna CN 4200. We roughly have 1,346 ports in the metropolitan area and overseas, which represent roughly 60-65 customers. The traffic is now sustained at 100 gigabit per second, and we have in input rate per year 60 petabyte exchange in 2012. For any reasons, the network services has disappeared, but nothing fancy. We provide IPv4, IPv6, unicast, multicast, 6VPE, MVPN, soon MVPN. Everything is running on the MPLS core, and we are providing VLL between sensors and also VPLS on demand. In terms of application, we are providing electronic certificates so as to identify servers and persons. We have 30,000 video conference calls per year, which is a specific MCU services. And we provide anti-spam service and access to EduRoam everywhere in France and universities. And that's it. Just one compliment is to, as opposed to other NWAN, demarcation point is the PE, is at the PE level. It means that we don't have any CPE, just because we rely on regional networks to provide connectivity to the university and to specific dense region. So our job is quite easier like that. To monitor that, we are performing passive measurement, SNMP polling. We have a homemade SNMP poller for legacy reasons, and a homemade netflow connector, which is called Renater Noc. The source code is open source. The main principle to use this specific netflow connector is that it can handle 100 megabit per second of netflow data, and also 300,000 flow per minutes. So mainly we have only one process, one daemon that is listening NetFlow. Based on the network data, we are performing security analysis and also the accounting for our customers. In terms of active measurement, we have deployed a cheetah beacon, which is a small box like, can we say, Hades box. And we have active measurement for every network services, IPv4, IPv6, and so on, so that we can detect specific abnormal condition sometimes before the network breaks, such as 40 cable and 40 plugs, which is not obvious. We have a front-end tool which is a network weather map. It is also a homemade network weather map tools. Basically, what you are using is basically you are in front of a visual-like diagram, and you put everything, and you stitch this to a specific ASCII files, and you have a weather map. That's it. So this is really convenient to use. And in terms of alarms and fault reporting, we have an ADIOS and specific tools we have developed due to our condition is a network config checker. I will put some details later. In terms of planning and operation, our activity is mainly related to engineering, and we have developed an open source GIS based on OpenStreetMap in order to follow all the path the dark fiber follows in the country. This can be reused, by the way. This is one of the examples of the weather map. So as you can see, you can distinguish the previous architecture principle I just described. Each node has a 10 gig lambda between each pop, and the security is ensured by IS and fast convergence fine-tuned upon the router. Forgot to tell you that in terms of router, we are running a 7600 router, and also 12K running iOS XR and a CRS1 in the core of the network, which is Paris, Lyon, and Marseille. We have overseas territories, and it is where the QoS is really used, because we don't have 10 gig links between the metropolitan area and the island. So now it's a good opportunity to study QoS. This is the Paris area, which is quite different now. As you can see, it is more dense, and we have a lot of capillarity. Each square is a Renater pop, in which you have a PE. Now this is an example of scientific project. This is a grid, a research grid project, where we have dedicated specific lambda over our DWDM infrastructure. So now you can see that there are pass-through lambda between the pops. So we call this lambda express lambda. And each time we dedicate some lambda to a project, we develop quickly a weather map. The IPPN dashboard is provided by studying the database filled by the cheetah beacon, as you can see. This is not an instant fault reporting per se, but it is really quite convenient, because now you can see that between Toulouse and Strasbourg, we have during the last 24 hours here, we saw a rerouting in the backbone. So each time there is some kind of abnormal condition, we receive an email, and even sometimes, if you want, an SMS, a text message, sorry. So this is the GIS. In case you are managing dark fiber, this is we have some documentation in it, so you can reuse it to manage your own dark fiber. The goal is to track the path of every links. So this is really convenient, because we discovered that some provider used the same path to reach the same node. So this is not what was contracted. So really useful tools, and especially when you are running specific tenders, because now you can ask them to provide you a dark fiber path which is different from the existing one, if you want. NOC structure. We have an outsourced NOC due to the huge geographical coverage of the network. It is impossible for us to have our own NOC. So we have an outsourced NOC, which is, I guess, different from most of you. We have a service desk. 8 person is ensuring level 1 support, 24 hours by 7. So these person are basically answering the call, populate the trouble ticket system, and relate to the SME change manager, which are more or less level 2, level 3 experts. We have also an incident manager, which liaises with us in case of outage. So we can say that is a kind of a CSM, customer service manager, and a tool manager, because to manage, in order to manage such network, we have to deploy tools such as LDAP, Radius, TACAX, and other kind of tools needed to have this network operated properly. We have a delivery manager, which is responsible for the coordination within the outsourced NOC, and the contract manager, which is mainly our SPOC, when you have to discuss about specific process and to adjust our need in terms of tools and process if needed. So I just want to make some important points by having an outsourced NOC, because we wanted at some point have an internal NOC, but but this includes some drawback for us due to our public structure. It is quite difficult to have 24 hours by 7 coverage. So our NOC is based in a central place in Paris, and we have a BCP DRP process in Lyon in case of specific outage in Paris. So the NOC can be rebuilt in Lyon instantly by duplicating every servers. The pros in having an outsourced NOC is that in French we have an idiomatic expression saying on n'est jamais mieux servi que par soi-même, meaning that if you want to do something and do something well, do it yourself. Because now one of our heavy duty is to perform a tight follow-up. The pros is that we have a huge organization that can provide answer to us quickly and have the support of specific experts if needed. So in order to lead this partnership with the outsourced NOC, we have two main meetings per week, which is the operational committee, where we can discuss about technical matters, future projects, and we have an exec committee, a steering committee, where pain points are discussed and how we can improve the service, and if the service does not conform to the contract. Communication tools. So the NOC communicate with us through a dedicated portal. There is a trouble ticket system named RT, and the document management is ensured by Alfresco. With other partners, our NOC is using the third-party tools provided by the provider. And the drawback is that there is not that much integration. I know that I have discussed with other people who, when they issue a tender related to a NOC service, they define their own protocol. It means that there is a specific XML definition, and the answer has to conform this discussion, this protocol, which is quite convenient. but it is hard to impose. Front end. Our main users are public institutions, research labs, and having public research lab and private partnerships sometimes, and ministry and schools and universities. We don't have any, by default, we don't have any SLAs, but everything is done to reach the 4.9. And for specific customer, we can sign a dedicated contract which mentions specific SLA if needed. In order to communicate, we are using legacy tools for mail, instant messaging, and also a customer portal, statistics such as providing data such as statistic consumption by a QoS tag. Internal communication. So internally, this is the phone, the mail, and instant messaging. RTQ when the subject repairs to Renater project. With Renater, the NOC use a dedicated portal ensured by RT. And there is also a customer a specific mailing list, and Alfresco is used to exchange documents and the versioning between the outsourced NOC and us. And we also have a configuration management where all the configuration is versioned. So this is really important because our tool, Network Config Checker, this is a homemade tool, is verifying every day that the tools conform the reality. With other, this NOC uses the third-party service provider existing tools, and still not that much integration. So, Stefan posed a good question. Which tools are used to facilitate internal communication? And I would say that let's have some discussion, maybe. In terms of documentation, the NOC provide documentation part of the contract. This is obvious. So they populate CMDB, and they have POP and inventory management. So, and these are proprietary tools. In terms of operational operational documentation, the NOC produce operational process guide. These are basically process guide defining how to interact with other peers. And we have an operational guide which now are more or less specific technical topics that are described on a small document. For instance, we can have a document describing how to move from iOS XR 3.0 to iOS XR 4.0. And we have also the last documentation that the NOC provide is the implementation guide, which is how the service is really configured on the equipment. I will provide more details later. In terms of tools, we are still using Alfresco, and to product the document, we use LibreOffice, MS Office, so as to using heavily the revision feature. In terms of best practice, as we have an outsourced NOC, we found this kind of practice really good for us. Just the main thing is if you want a specific service deployed, the first step is for us to write a specification document. Let's say we want to deploy IPv4 multicast. We say that we want a specific RP at which place. We want to have PIM, sparse mode, and so on. And the step 2 for the NOC is to provide us the implementation document, which is, okay, the RP will be configured in which router. This is the configuration line, the IP address, and in each interface of the backbone, we will have a PIM sparse mode configure, for instance. And the first step for us, when the service is deployed, what we are doing is with our tool called NCC, Network Config Checker, we are verifying every day that the service conforms to the implementation document. So every day we can say that our service is verified without having too much person involved in checking the backbone among the 72 POPs. And this is, I guess this is something that really works well for us. So with NCC, with these steps we can define, for instance, specific rule for IGP, and say that we want a specific weight in which IS link. And every day, if there is some deviation during, for instance, a link that is flapping, we are increasing the weight just to check, without shutting the link, just to check if just to gain some time to cure the link, I guess, I would say. And then most of the time our NOC forget to put back the original weight. So this is something that is, for instance, used. And I guess that's it.
My question is about the network config checker. Is for IP or optical equipment?
Virtually, if you can have a textual format of your configuration, it can verify everything. So we are now working. We have work for iOS XR, and this year we will work with Juniper, as we have a bunch of MX 480.
You mentioned at some point that you use, you have developed your own tool for NetFlow. Can you say a few more things on this? So what are the reasons that you do not use one of the off-shelf solution, and if you support V9, version 9?
So we have a NetFlow expert within Renater, which he can read the matrix quickly. It's really impressive. The reason to have developed our own NetFlow connector is to have one process, one daemon that can handle all the NetFlow export from the router. And this NetFlow collector is doing NetFlow V9 and also IPFix.
You mentioned that you using RT for the fault, dealing with the faults ticketing system. But what about if your customer have a question or consulting, or they need some consulting? So then you use just email list, or you still using ticketing system for that kind of requests?
We are using the RT feature, which is when you reply to a specific mail. The mail itself has the RT name included within the mail, which stores and keep track of the mail exchange. So again, most of the tools are homemade tools. The GIS tools, for instance, can be reused if you want. We have some documentation, and also the NetFlow collector is something that is open source.
You say that the NOC service is outsourced. These people that is providing you the service is the people that is providing you the service are working in other NOC for other networks, or are resources dedicated and exclusively to Renater? They
are exclusively dedicated. So the point is to really have a quick answer when there is a huge issue.